with Khabib Nurmagomedov behind him. Is there anything that can stop this man from reaching his destiny? Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about Islam Makhachev, the most feared fighter in the UFC right now. His dominant wrestling and size makes him a formidable force within the lightweight division. Today, we're going to look at his 9 best moments in the UFC. Let's get to it. Starting us off is when Islam edged a win against Chris Wade. After winning a round each in a series of hard-fought scrambles for the win, Makhachev's dominance put him ahead of Chris Wade in the final round and got the decision. The final round was unanimously scored 29-28, which was a reflection of the Dagestani wrestler's success in getting into dominant positions and holding back his opponent's counters. After taking a few hard leg kicks, Makhachev pressed for a takedown, but found himself in a front headlock. When he finally scrambled out of it, he took mount, but found himself missing the armbar attempt and ended up under Wade. Even in that position, he remained composed and set up a triangle choke that had the potential to end the fight if it wasn't for Wade's resilience under pressure. In the second round, Wade tried to make it a stand-up fight. Eventually, Wade got his chance to slow down the action with a guillotine choke, but it wasn't for long. The Sambo wrestling came up on top when Islam reversed the position and held it to the end of the round despite good attempts to reverse it. He went into the third round clearly fresher, and it showed in his ease to push Wade against the fence and execute a takedown. There was a ray of hope for Wade as he landed the Kimura at the counter and reversed the position briefly. Islam eventually found a way to reverse the position and get in mount to assume control once more. Then it seemed over for Wade as the body triangle was in, and every attempt to escape was denied. Coming in at number 8 is Islam's complete dominance of Nick Lentz. Makhachev's success in this fight can be attributed to his takedowns from the get-go. He used his inside trip to get Lentz on the ground and hammered him without letting him get back up to his feet. Lentz tried his best to come back into the fight with his guillotine attempts from the ground, but they were of little use against the younger fighter. Even on the feet, Makhachev dominated Lentz with kicks to the head and the body, only to take him back to the ground and resume the onslaught. In the final minutes of the third, Islam came very close to finishing the fight by taking Lentz's back, hammering him with punches, and attempting a rear naked choke. Having survived that attempt, Lentz put it all in his last takedown attempt before the horn sounded and put an end to what was a very one-sided fight. It was scored 30-25, 30-25, and 30-27, unanimously in favor of the Dagestani. This is when he made the comment that is now echoing in the heads of fight fans. Makhachev said he wanted bigger fights, and look at where he is today. At number 7, Makhachev got the sport's fastest knockout against Gleison Tibau. Islam gave Gleison Tibau a great welcome back present. Now every time anyone searches for the fastest knockout in the UFC, they'll see his name. After missing a high kick shot up the middle in the first 20 seconds, the two continued to survey the scene until Makhachev found his rhythm and made it known to his opponent, faking a right hand and following it with a left hook that landed just right and dropped Tibau onto the canvas. Islam followed the Brazilian onto the mat and dropped in a few shots to make sure the win was secured before referee Dan Miragliotta shut down the fight. The punch that caught Tibau was actually the first punch of the fight. In the post-fight interview, Makhachev claimed that the top 15 was full of bum fighters and called out Kevin Lee as the biggest bum of them all. He pleaded with the UFC to give him a chance, winning only his third fight and calling out a top 15 guy. That's something. Coming in at number 6, the Cajun Johnson submission. This is around the time when fans started realizing what they had gotten in Islam Makhachev. The submission artist was beginning to show himself. After feeling the reins out, he kicked high but missed it. Johnson was still looking out for an opening to start the scoring of the match, but 90 seconds in, Makhachev landed a deadly body kick and stayed well out of the range for Johnson to jab on the counter. With a minute left, the wrestler closed the gap and tied Cajun up. In his attempt to get out, he threw a left hand up, and Makhachev saw the opportunity. He took down with a double leg takedown and popped to full mount. This was the beginning of the end end for Johnson, landing short punches to catch him off guard. Makhachev transitioned into an armbar attempt on his opponent's right arm. When he managed to get the arm free, all he had to do was drop back and watch Johnson realize that this was out of his control. The torture proved too much for Cajun, and he tapped out not too long after. This is the fight that showed the world that Makhachev was a force, and anyone standing across him needs to be careful. At number 5, a first round TKO against Bobby Green. Makhachev was originally set to fight against Beneil Dariush, but the card was changed due to some issues in his camp. Bobby Green stepped up 10 days notice, heavily underestimating his opponent. At this point, Islam was known to be a killer in the cage and was looking for his next big opportunity, and that's exactly what he got. Opening the bout with a few kicks and punches, it was clear that the Dagestani wanted to show that he needed real competition. He dropped Green for the takedown and started swinging insanely for the knockout. The thing that makes this a part of this list is that after this fight, Bobby Green described Makhachev's strength as that of a guy who had been given steroids since he was 10. This is the fight that gave him the title shot that he would eventually win. At number 4, we've got the unanimous decision against Tsarukyan. The reason this one makes it to the list is the fact that this is the first guy Makhachev faced in the UFC that actually gave him a run for his money. The two went grapple for grapple and takedown attempt for takedown attempt until eventually the fight went for the judges' scorecards. And boy, was that fight close. The fight was scored 30-27 and 29-28 in favor of Makhachev. After the fight, Islam even said that he thought he'd have a far bigger advantage than he did and that Tsarukyan would have a bright future. Taking number 3 is the fact that Islam Makhachev is training in Nepal. For his fight with Alexander Volkanovski, Islam Makhachev seems to be training in Nepal, as we've gathered from a photo on his Instagram. You guys must be asking yourselves, well, hey, maybe he's just there, but the answer is no. The fight is a little over a month away, and there's no way Khabib is letting his star out to rest. This technique is often used by players that have to fight in countries they aren't used to. It's done to increase the durability of your body and make it comfortable at lower oxygen levels. But the thing that doesn't make sense is the fact that the fight is in Perth, Australia. The venue is at sea level, so it isn't a cause to train at high altitudes, but hey, maybe the champion's got something up his sleeve. Coming in at number 2 are Islam's comments about Paddy Pimblett. The UFC world was not impressed by Paddy Pimblett's performance at UFC 282. Pimblett managed to defeat Jared Gordon by unanimous decision. While many fans believed that Gordon had won the fight, the judges scored it 28-29 to Paddy. Many fighters on the UFC's roster were on the fence about this win and were unhappy that he said that he won with relative ease. Islam Makhachev made it very clear that he believed that Paddy was not the winner of that fight. Now, on top of winning a controversial decision, Paddy Pimblett went as far as to say that he would have fared better against Makhachev than Charles Oliveira. Anyone who follows the UFC knows that Islam isn't much of a talker outside the octagon, but this was going too far. The champion tweeted back at Paddy, saying that the only way he could beat him was if the fight was taking place in Nevada, and that too only on the judges' scorecards. Makhachev became the first to clap back at Paddy with this tweet that has since been deleted. If we're being honest, we all know who's coming out of that fight alive, and it isn't Paddy. Now for our main event, Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. This fight was arguably Islam's biggest moment in the UFC. A kid from Dagestan became the world lightweight champion after this day. Makhachev took Oliveira down in round 1 and dropped him in round 2. The challenger secured an arm triangle choke on Do Bronx and made him submit. By doing so, he defeated the best Brazilian jiu-jitsu specialist in the UFC, a man who took down Israel Adesanya not too long ago. And it's not just the win that makes this moment a big one. Right after the fight, Alexander Volkanovski was called into the ring and proposed a champ vs. champ showdown that will now take place in Australia in February. Volkanovski is coming up to lightweight for the bout in order to have a chance at being the champ with 2 belts across his shoulders, while this fight will be Makhachev's first title defense. That's a wrap for this video. Have we missed any moments? Who do you think is going to be the victor in Perth? Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.